Hi everybody. Sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulty today, getting back from vacation and everything. I hope you're having a great summer. So today I brought a mug to demonstrate. This is what I've got today. And what I did in this is a combination of Satin Matte and Celadon and Velvet Underglaze. So putting them all together, I really loved the color combination, and that was kind of the inspiration for the design, but I wanted to show some different things. So I'm going to get started, and I'll talk about some other stuff as we go along. So hang on a moment. So here we go. There's my mug. And I used, I'm going to set this aside for a moment, I used the Satin Matte 11 white, and I used Celadon Tangelo C65. It is a really brilliant orange, kind of like a dreamsicle is how I describe it. Hi Rachel. And sorry, I have to adjust some things. I love the color of this, especially in combination with the V327 turquoise blue. So to get started, what I did is I had my mug. There we go. I have my mug. And I apply 2 coats of the SM11 on the bottom half of the body of the mug. So, get a nice brush. Now I've already cleaned this off, but it does have like a little smudge on the handle. I think that might be biscuit on there. Not sure. Anyhow. So the clay on this is 11M A mix. That is our AMACO white stoneware. Hi Marie, and hi Diane. Thank you for coming to us from Tasmania. So I just apply 3 coats to the bottom half of the body of the mug. Yes, I had a wonderful vacation with my family, and kind of a road trip vacation. Went to the beach, went to the city, visited some friends who have just moved and visited their new home, and had a great time. I hadn't had a vacation in almost a year, so it was really lovely. And funny enough, I am possibly one of the few people who can go on vacation to the beach and come back without any tan. It doesn't really make any difference. So 3 coats. Brush it on. Now this is since this is drying pretty quickly, and I know it's hard to see where it is applied because the color of the raw glaze and the color of the clay are so similar, so that can be really confusing. But this is a second coat because the glaze is drying really fast. And you see how I try to get it as smooth and even as possible. Having a nice soft bristle brush really helps with getting a smooth application. So I'm going to set that one aside, and I'm going to show you the next step once the glaze is dry. Now I know that this looks like I haven't done anything, it's just a bisque mug. You can see that pencil line, and that is where this is the Satin Matte White 3 coats on the bottom half of this mug. No, it doesn't really look like it. as I said, the Satin Matte White is almost exactly the same color as the bisque clay. So I'll set my Satin Matte aside, my mug aside. So I have my V327 turquoise blue, and I do want to share with you that I test everything. So this was several years ago. I applied 3 coats of SM11. You can see I made a little code right there. SM11, this was fired to cone 5, and I applied 1, 2, 3 coats of different underglazes. And some of them worked, and some of them really did not. So this is a good reason to always be testing. So the colors that really worked well were 390, which I believe is bright orange, flame orange, something like that, 327 turquoise blue, and 391 bright yellow. These were some underglazes that I had mixed up, and they came out really dry, so I didn't use those. And then 382, I think is deep red, bright red. I always forget the velvet numbers and names. I always have a chart to look at, and of course I don't have my chart. I do have my chart. I have it right behind me. So I'll show you guys on my chart. There's my chart. So I have 390 is bright orange, 327 is turquoise blue, 391 is intense yellow, and 382, where's 382, is red. So those are the velvets that I used, and 381 was not bad. 381 is violet. So that one came out pretty well. Let's go back to the overhead. And so violet, today I'm going to use the turquoise blue. I didn't do all of the velvets. There's a lot of velvets. I also did the velour black on top just to see how it would come out, and it came out great. And that's using the applicator. You guys have seen me use the applicator before. And then just because I wanted to see how it would work, I used our Teacher's Palette 1, TP1 Coal, which is the black Teacher's Palette. And this is a low fire, it's a glaze, but it's a really stiff glaze, so it stays where you put it. But at cone 5 on top of the satin matte, it does bleed. It almost looks like a mocha diffusion sort of effect. And it's quite pretty, but I wanted something that would be a crisp line, so I decided not to go with that. So going back to my mug, I opted for V327 turquoise blue. I do a lot of testing, so I can always see what my results will be like. Let's see. Can you pour your HF? So Teresa asks, can she pour her HF9 or a similar color glaze inside a skinny neck vase? And I do. I do pour glazes like that frequently into long, narrow vessels. It might need to get thinned down a little bit. So I just freehanded the design for this, but I wanted to show you that you can also use a pencil. It will burn out. So you can use a pencil to kind of give you an idea of where you want things to go. It doesn't have to be a perfect drawing, but the graphite pencil will burn out. Now if you use an underglaze pencil, it will not burn out. So I was inspired by Mendy designs, but this is not a perfect Mendy design. It's just my impersonation of one. Now I can draw directly over. And you can use, if you have an underglaze applicator bottle, you can use that instead of using a brush. I just used a brush for this because it was what I figured most people have access to. And I wanted to do something different because I know I show you guys how I use an applicator all the time. So just using, you'll notice that this has very long, soft bristles. So it holds a lot of underglaze. So it makes nice, long lines. A good way to practice your brush work if you're trying to improve it, trying to get the hang of it. I could always stand some improvement myself, is to use a brush dipped in water and brush directly on something like, one of my favorite things to use is newsprint, because it'll show the brush marks really well and then it dries really quickly and you can do it again. You do have to be careful because the if you're using newsprint for this, which is what I usually do, it can soak through, so do be careful of that. So Rachel, like I said, I'm using like the brush. My favorite applicator is this, which is the AMACO Underglaze applicator. You can find it on our website. It's under Glaze Tools. And Tammy, no, this has not been fired yet. This is raw glaze, unfired glaze. So you're seeing exactly the steps. Just I'm doing it in my cooking school, cooking class technique. So then no problem. Any other questions today? So I did want to talk about our giveaway. It'll be a monthly giveaway, and you need to make a single post with the photo, and when you post the photo, make sure that not in the comments, but in the post itself, the text for the post itself, you put hashtag glazing with AMACO. And yes, Tammy, I love using underglaze on top of a satin glaze. This is not the first time I've demonstrated this. I know it's not the usual, and I don't do it on food surfaces, but I do it on any place on the outside, decorative surfaces, and I've also done it on sculptural pieces. I feel like I get more control and brighter colors, but the thing is that not all underglazes will work for this technique. So I always test before I go ahead and do it. Some underglazes get really dry. Some of them actually get kind of crusty, and it's not really the aesthetic that I'm going for. If you're wanting the crusty aesthetic, then it works pretty well. But the reason I only do it on non-food surfaces is because it's not tested for food safety that way, going on top of a glaze. And although all of our underglazes are lead-free, I don't really want to have to test them, and I don't want to find out, if it's a problem. They're smooth. It's probably fine, but that's just me. Now, we have lots of underglazes, Tammy. We and Rachel, if you posted last month, it's still good because it's all of July until August 9. And we'll be randomly selecting a photo after next Monday. So I'll be announcing it next week. Diane, I must have missed your question. Let me see if I can go back. Celadons and PC glazes, you can go to cone 5 or you can go to 5.5. Some of the Celadons will lose a little color around cone 6 or up. So we recommend for that you stick to cone 5, cone 6 at the most. Do I have a smaller brush? So I'm talking to myself. So now that I have the underglaze on, I missed a lot of questions. I'm going to apply my tangelo. Let's see, Teresa, I would not thin it with gum solution. You could add a little water. It depends on how thick your glaze is. If it's thin enough to go to pour, then just go ahead and use it. If it's too thick, if it's like globby and you're worried about it, you can thin it with a little bit of water. If you add more than a quarter cup to a pint of water, a quarter cup of water to a pint of glaze, I would highly recommend that you add gum solution, but only a little bit. The gum solution will slow the glaze from drying time, so it'll make it a little more complicated. So now on my sample mug, I did kind of arches. But you'll also notice that where it went over the satin matte, it's a slightly different color. Just keep in mind it will do that. So I'm only going to put a little bit on. Whoops, sorry. Rachel asked what brush was that? So I always use the AMACO brushes. This is a size 4 AMACO brush. It is a natural fiber brush. And the brush that I used for applying the underglaze is so old that it doesn't have any more writing on it, so I couldn't even tell you, but it is a natural fiber brush, and it has very long bristles. Let me see if I can clean it up and I can show you. So here we go. Long bristles, natural fibers, very soft. And okay, there we go. I think I've caught up with all the questions. If you have any more questions, please post it again. Sorry, I think there were just a lot that came in all at once, and it's just me, so I'm looking back and forth and not always catching them. Rachel asked if the underglaze would work the same as if the LUG would work the same as the velvet. The LUGs, most of them will flux at a lower temperature, so they will look a little different. They won't look exactly the same. Some of them flux at a higher temperature, and those will look about the same. So there we go. Get my first coat of tangelo on there. I'm going to get down into the crevice there. Oh, hard for me to see and make sure it's on camera at the same time. So, here we are. And now to do the inside. Set that aside. And how many layers of underglaze? I didn't really do layers, so I just did a line. And you can see on the fired results how it's a little darker where it was thick and it's a little lighter where it was thinner. So I just applied one coat with the, and that is one of the advantages I find of using underglaze, either velvets or smugs, on top of the satin mattes, is that even one coat is going to show up. There we go. So there's my first coat of the And now the one that I started earlier, you can see it is like almost invisible where that glaze is. That the Satin Matte, here, I'm going to put my third coat on. And I have also done this kind of thing with decals on top of Satin Matte, and they work pretty well. So if you're using an underglaze decal, that is another option, is to use it on top of a Satin Matte. If you're using it on top of a glossy glaze like a Celadon, it may shift, so your imagery won't be crisp. But on top of Satin Matte White, or even one of the colors of Satin Matte, it won't move. It'll stay put. The only problem with using it on top of a colored Satin Matte is it might not show up depending on the color you use. I think if you used black on top of like chartreuse, it would show up just fine. So there's my Satin Matte White, all applied. 3 or 4 coats of the Tangelo. I'm going to use 3 coats. If you use more, it'll be darker, it'll be brighter, but I don't really need to do that. And the velvets do show up just fine over the clear. You're just going to see the color of the clay. So if the clay is like not perfectly white, it'll come out kind of a softer color. But I've used both underglaze under a clear and then more underglaze on top of the clear for different kinds of images, and it gets a different effect, and it's really, really fun. So yeah, the Satin Matte is great with clear. The Satin Matte Clear is great over underglazes. Give it a try. I will bring some samples in next time to show you how it looks. It's really, really beautiful. It does soften some of the colors a little bit, and black is going to come out a little bit blue. You have to remember that using a Satin Matte Clear over underglazes is going to be like looking through a piece of frosted glass. So here's my second coat of Tangelo on here. The velvets, they stay pretty sharp. They're not perfectly sharp. You can see that they are, there is a little softness on the edges, but they're a lot more crisp than you might expect, and they don't run on the satin mattes. And Teresa was asking if this technique only works on the satin mattes. Well, you can use it on other glazes, but like the Celadons, you can do this on snow, but snow will move a little bit. It will melt a little bit. And so your underglazes may shift, so they might run a little bit. If you're putting underglaze on top of a glaze and the glaze runs, it'll definitely move. And there is a little bit of movement with the Celadons. They don't run exactly, but they do kind of move a little bit. I don't know how better to describe it. And Diane, I do have a picture. Well, I don't have a picture here, and I don't have the sample with me, but I will post a photo later of an example of the transfer on top of the satin matte. And hey, Kayla, Kayla was at one point worked in our studio and was our intern here and made a lot of the pieces that we were using for samples. So I decided to use a little bit of the Tangelo as an accent right in the center of my design. And there we go. And what is the first one that you were applying? The first, so I used the Satin Matte White, was the first glaze applied, and it was just 3 coats to the bottom part of the outside. And then I applied the V327 turquoise blue, and I just got glaze on my hand, to draw the design on top of the satin matte. And then once that is dry enough for me to handle the pot, I put tangelo, 3 coats of tangelo C65 on top. So that is the order of application. So there we go. I'm going to let that dry. And thanks for joining me today with Glazing with AMACO. Did want to come back to talk to you guys about that. So hashtag Glazing with AMACO. We haven't had any giveaways yet. So if you have already submitted, one photo, you don't need to do another one until after August 10. And then after August 10, it restarts and we can take more applications. To apply for Glazing with AMACO giveaway, we're going to do this every month, and it is post a photo of your own work using AMACO glazes. Post the photo in the AMACO Cone 5/6 glaze exchange, and use the hashtag in the original post, hashtag Glazing with AMACO. So I think that there have been some people who have posted it as a comment in our videos or other things, and we won't see them that way. So you need to make it an independent post, a photo post with the hashtag Glazing with AMACO in the original post. If you did not, you need to go back and edit the post. Don't just put a comment in it. Go to the edit, go to your photo, click on those three little dots, edit post, hashtag Glazing with AMACO. Next Monday, we will do a random selection of one person. So it's not about the quality. We're not judging the quality of the artwork presented, but it does have to be all AMACO glazes that you're showing, and submitting multiple images will not increase your chances of winning. So you can submit one piece now, and then next month you can submit another piece for that giveaway. And we're giving away one box, 6 pints of AMACO glaze from a select list of what we have available in stock, so that it goes out as quickly as possible. If you have other questions, please feel free to message me, and I think that is it for today with our glazing, and I will get this fired and you'll see the results, and I'll share it with you all and show you how the demo piece looks just like the original piece. And you've also now seen me use my backdrop because it is my reference material as well as my backdrop. If you have other questions, go ahead and feel free to drop them in the comments, and I will get to you offline today. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks, guys. Happy glazing.